What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. And this week is a Saturday race at Richmond, Saturday night race. So I will make sure I have this episode out before practice and qualifying so nobody can say I looked at numbers to help me with anything. But here we are, a NASCAR preview and prediction series. As I said, Saturday night at Richmond, as NASCAR likes to do in August. Let's get into some storylines coming out of last week's race. Gibbs takes two tires and wins the race, his second career victory, second of this year, moves up to second in points. What a gutsy call. I think Christopher Bell was definitely faster, but it was great strategy, and Gibbs didn't let him around. Gibbs taking two tires. Not the only guy. Josh Berry took two tires on that last run, and it netted him quite a few positions as well. Really not a lot of left side of wear at Iowa. Gibbs takes advantage. Christopher Bell finished his second for the seventh time this season. Christopher Bell is usually one of the guys you expect to be in the championship battle, and I'm not saying he's not capable of it this year. We'll see where he is in points shortly. But man, 7 second places is not expected from Christopher Bell. You got to think he's going to get into victory lane sometime, and probably soon. Toyota is in a dominating position, dominating the series this year. They have way more wins than everybody else. When you look at the top 10, top 6, top 8, however you want to phrase it, there's a boatload of Toyotas near the top of the list. Toyota just dominating the series this year. Blaney might be the only hope. He's the only guy that seems like point-wise he's able to keep with the Toyotas, at least as of late. And you're going to see in the point settings exactly how lonely he is up there as a Ford. Multiple wrecks this week with big points implications. Tyler Reddick gets wrecked and goes to fourth. Very rough week for Tyler Reddick with that early wreck, and he takes out Eric Jones, a fellow Toyota guy. They both had great starting position. Toyota driver. They both had good starting position, and Eric Jones was looking at like, I have a chance to run in the top 10 all day, collect a whole bunch of points, and get closer to that playoff cut line that he's fighting for. And Tyler Reddick and him both are out within the first couple laps of the race. Kyle Larson gets wrecked. Part of a 4 wide struggle, and that destroys his points day after showing maybe some early speed. Plenty of errors that happen throughout the day as well. Somebody like Bubba Wallace leading 31 laps. He's trying to break into the top 10 of the points and then speeds during pit stops. So, some wrecks, some mistakes cost some drivers with a lot on the line, cost them an awful lot. Speaking of Tyler Reddick, ice cold continues, was dominating the series early on, had a 100-point lead, over 100-point lead in first place, and now he's fallen to fourth. This has been an awful 6 weeks for him, lots of DNFs, and even in some races where it seems he's had speed. Reddick needs to get it going, needs to build some momentum these next 3 races before the playoffs start. The points continue to stay shaken up. With how close some of the battles are, you have drivers moving 2 or 3 spots up and down every single week. We'll see if that continues this week at Richmond, which is a similar-ish track to Iowa, and Richmond similar kind of to North Wilkesboro. We've had a lot of short tracks this last month in this last group of races. Certain drivers and certain teams are better at them, and we'll see if the status quo from these last couple short track races continues this week at Richmond. Chevy struggles continue. Elliott found a way to the front on strategy. Had an issue, kind of went up front, but he had to use strategy to get there. Byron ran in the top 10. Your top Chevy in points, Carson Hocevar, had an awful day. Austin Dillon had a good day for Chevy. Kyle Larson struggled. Chase Elliott struggled. Just Hendrick Motorsports struggles continue. Their top 10 list streak did get broken with William Byron this week. But overall, Chevy's still struggling on these short tracks a little bit. There is a little bit a sign of life, but not a whole lot. Noah Gragson signs a 1-year extension to stay at Front Row Motorsports for 2027. And then number 10, I want to go on a rant for you guys. We need to chill out about Lee Diffie. I do not understand why people hate him. If it's just because he has an Australian accent, that's a really dumb reason. I'm going to be honest. Lee Diffie And I'm sorry to some of you NASCAR guys that, you know, that some of you NASCAR guys are not going to like what I'm about to say. In my opinion, Lee Diffie is the best play-by-play commentator in all four of the NASCAR broadcasts. He's definitely better than Mike Joy on Fox. You know, I just Lee Diffie. I feel like the only reason why people don't like him is because he has an Australian accent. An Australian accent, by the way, that's not that difficult to understand. And we really shouldn't have that much beef with Australians. I don't understand what the issue with Lee Diffie is, other than people don't like him because he sounds different. But he's really good at his job. It feels like he gives appropriate excitement when it's due. It doesn't feel like he does. He gives the appropriate excitement. He's good at telling the story of a race. He's good at building excitement. He's good at understanding when he needs to go, when he needs to not go. When he locks in late race, he does a very good job. I just think Lee Diffie is way overhated and for no reason. And quite frankly, it's a really bad look for the sport if you just don't like him because he has an Australian accent, and it's kind of stupid. What do you mean NASCAR needs a voice? Like, you shouldn't have an Australian voice. Let me take you back to the 80s when there was a British guy doing commentary for NASCAR. Like, I would rather have Australians than British people, if I'm being honest. That's not to be taken fully serious. I'm half joking with that. But in all seriousness, we need to chill out about Lee Diffie. He knows the sport. He's done a lot of work to make sure he knows the sport. He works hard and he's good at his job. And people need to stop complaining about Lee Diffie. And you can come at me in the comments if you want to about that. Not a big deal to me. Maybe I'll respond. Moving on, let's talk about the important stuff. The next gen history at Richmond. Again, some of the next gen history. We'll see how much of it actually matters because different teams have had different bodies, and most importantly, there's new tire compounds that have been in effect that might change some of this. But the next gen winners at Richmond, Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, that makes sense the first two seasons. Larson and Buescher won the races in 2023. And then in the last year of multiple races, Denny Hamlin in 2024, Denny Hamlin won the spring. Austin Dillon won the late summer race with that very big controversy where he wrecked Logano and Hamlin in the final corner to do so. And then Austin Dillon won again last year. So Austin Dillon has won the last two races here. He's not in the best average finish, however. There's only 5 drivers that average a top 5 here. After Christopher Bell in 5th, it kind of drops off into the 11 and 12s. But Denny Hamlin, 2-time race winner here, best average finish at 5.7, the Virginia kid. Kyle Larson, 7.9 with a victory here. Joey Logano at 8.4. No victories here, but probably would have won it in August of 2024 if it wasn't for Austin Dillon wrecking him. Josh Berry, somebody that's been very good on short tracks with this tire compound as of late, has an average finish of 8.8, has a second place finish here. And Christopher Bell, 9.3. Christopher Bell usually has a pretty good average finish at a lot of these tracks, which is why I think, he's one of the most consistently fast drivers. He has to find victory lane at some point. Most top 5s, Denny Hamlin has 5 top 5s in 7 races. 2 drivers have 3, Larson and Logano, and then a whopping 5 drivers have 2 top 10s. Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, Chris Buescher, and Ross Chastain. When you look at top 10s, Denny Hamlin has 6 top 10s in 7 races. 3 drivers are tied at 5, Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, and Kyle Larson. 2 drivers are tied at 4, Brad Keselowski and Austin Dillon. And 4 drivers are tied at 3, Alex Bowman, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, and Chris Buescher. If you're wondering why Josh Berry's 4th in average finish and isn't on the top 5 or top 10 list, it's because he does only have 4 starts because of when he came up to the Cup Series. I believe he raced once in 2023, filling in for Chase Elliott, and then he was full-time in 2024. 2025, and then this will be his 4th full-time race. So that's why Josh Berry has a good average finish, which you don't see him in the top 5s or the top 10s. With that history, and also combining who's been fast with this tire compound and who's been fast this year at this type of track, let's get into some favorites. Team Penske is my favorite to win. I know I had him as my favorite to win last week. Joe Gibbs Racing won, but Ryan Blaney and Logano both had good finishes, and Ryan Blaney was really good last week. So I'm going to leave Team Penske out there. This is the type of track they need to make their. Uh, this is the type of track where Penske needs to be good to stay relevant in the points. Joe Gibbs Racing won last week. We're really good at North Wilkesboro. They've been good at the short tracks all year. I think Joe Gibbs Racing will be fast. Hendrick Motorsports, I think, will get it going eventually. They have a win at this track. They have some good short track racers. They're showing more signs of life. Hendrick Motorsports, when looking at the points, I think knows it's important for them to get hot here late. I think Hendrick shows us with some speed. I almost put 23XI above Hendrick, but 23XI, while this season they have proven they're fast at tracks they haven't always been fast at, I still want to see them continue that. Let's see if Richmond is another one of the tracks they can turn around their historical finishing position at, if that makes sense. They haven't been great at Richmond. They haven't been awful, but they haven't been great. So I'm leaving them at 4, but they have been good at this type of track this year, so maybe they should be higher on this list. I put Spire down there last week, and they made a fool of me. I'm not going to do that again. RFK Racing has a win here in the next gen era. They have some drivers with good performances. I'll go ahead and put RFK there as my 5th team. You know the top 4 every week because they have just separated themselves so much. But that 5th spot, whether it's Spire or RFK or anybody else, sometimes it's Trackhouse that joins this list, But that 5th spot is usually the one that's up for discussion. The top 4 you're just discussing order. And then in the driver rankings, Denny Hamlin has won here twice, has the best stats here. It's one of the tracks that is close to where he grew up. This one in Martinsville. He's already talking about how he's planning on having family and friends and visitors there. Denny Hamlin, I'm going to give him the number 1 driver ranking in a win this week. I don't know if it would be official, but it would essentially probably means he's looking really good for that regular season championship. Joey Logano has been really good on this tire compound at the short tracks this year. I think he continues that success this weekend. Kyle Larson has shown elements of speed. He's been fast here. I still think it's crazy Kyle Larson hasn't won. I'm going to give him the 3rd best odds, and that's a big risk. You could argue he should be lower on this list. Christopher Bell has been good here in past years. Christopher Bell still looking for his first win. JGR and Toyota have dominated a lot of this season. Toyota in general has dominated. Give me Christopher Bell to have a top 5 day. Ryan Blaney was really good last week at Iowa. Ryan Blaney's good at these short tracks, just like Team Penske has been. Ryan Blaney also second in the points, trying to run down Denny Hamlin. Only 3 races left, and it's a big deficit, but I think Ryan Blaney shows up this week. And here's somebody you don't see on my favorites to win too often. Josh Berry, not in his car anymore, still looking for a ride for next year, has nothing to lose, has been very good at Richmond, been very, very good. If you look at the short tracks with this tire compound, Josh Berry has done very well, had a top 5 last week. I think that continues this week, and Josh Berry has a good week with all of those factors taken account for. Chase Elliott has found a way to get better finishes than he deserves. Last week, he should have had a better finish than he did. They're not afraid to try the strategy. Chase Elliott is normally a good short track guy. He has some good performances here in recent years. Give me Chase Elliott at 7. Gibbs and Briscoe are 8 and 9, and maybe they should be higher with how good Joe Gibbs Racing has been. And Ty Gibbs has 2 wins this year, and they're at short tracks, although Bristol's not necessarily that similar to Richmond. But Gibbs has been good this year. Briscoe's been good this year. They both are usually top 10, borderline top 5 on these short tracks. I think that continues. And then Chris Buescher, somebody who has won here before, hasn't won a race this year, still hanging on in the points in the top 10, despite his other 2 teammates struggling right now. I think Chris Buescher could be looking to have a good day as well. And actually, I feel so dumb. There was somebody that I wanted to talk about. I meant to put Austin Dillon at 10, and I just completely spaced. It's Austin Dillon at 10. He's won the last 2 races here. They had some speed in the early parts of last week. I think Austin Dillon's going to be fast once again. This is a track RCR seems to have figured out in the next gen era. I think that continues. I think that they want to get a win and honor Kyle Busch, which is another news element I forgot. It's interesting to me, but JGR is going to be honoring Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs with the M&M's car, running 54 M&Ms in honor of Kyle Busch. Um, Even if you don't like the history with Ty Gibbs and Kyle Busch on terms of how Ty Gibbs replaced Kyle Busch at JGR, and some people weren't fans of it, I still think it's cool JGR is doing something for him. Maybe it would have been more fun to be like Denny Hamlin, somebody that had a long-term relationship and was a long-term teammate, but I still think it's cool that this is an opportunity that's happening. Sorry for that sidetrack. It started because I forgot to put Austin Dillon at 10, and that's where Austin Dillon should be. I'll put Chris Buescher at 10B or 11. Regular season standings, I have taken orange away. Ty Gibbs is now second. He's proven to me that he can be consistent enough to be a championship contender. So we're down to just 4 colors. Yellow is the championship favorites, the guys who have proven that they can be fast everywhere this year and have been better than everybody. Just look at the points gap from 4th to 5th and from 4th to 1st. They're way ahead of everybody. The pink drivers are drivers that have won championships or have proven they have been able to, and they're in equipment that is good enough to do it. Hocevar is the newest addition to that list. He's been pretty good this year despite having a rough week last week. And the drivers in pink, they just need to get in position to do so. Briscoe and Bell, they say you need to be in the top 6 to have a chance. And so maybe Briscoe and Bell, if they can stay there or separate themselves from the people behind them, maybe I will, or any of these guys really, I will give them their own color. But for now, the pink drivers are the drivers that, if they can get into the top 6, 7, 8, have a chance at the championship, but they're not quite on the same level as the yellow. Green drivers are drivers that should make the chase, but they're not real threats. They should just be happy they're having good seasons and looking to win races. And then red is the battle for the last 2 playoff spots and drivers that are trying to make the playoffs and who I believe, I think Bubba Wallace feels pretty good, and Joey Logano should as well, especially with the speed they have. I really think your last 2 playoff spots, the 15th and 16th, are going to come from these 6 drivers. Remember when the chase was 10 drivers, guys? Imagine if it was 10 drivers and the cut line battle right now was between Kyle Larson and William Byron, 2 of the guys who were in the championship 4 last year and have been 2 of the best drivers in the next-gen era fighting for the last playoff spot. I guess, Chris, they could still catch a lot of the guys in front of them too, but that would be a crazy thing to watch. But yeah, Denny Hamlin still has an over 100-point lead for first place. Another thing about these yellow drivers, where you see the stars, that means they are locked into the postseason. So the top 4 are also locked into the postseason. But Gibbs, Blaney, and Reddick are 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and they're only separated by 17. So a lot, if they don't feel like they can catch Denny Hamlin, there's a lot to be decided between Gibbs, Blaney, and Reddick for who gets 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in points. And barring something catastrophic or somebody behind them going on a super hot streak, they should be your top 4. Just the order needs to be dependent on. I mean, Denny Hamlin has a huge lead for first, but 1st to 4th is separated by 120 points. 4th to 5th is separated by 140. And that's where we find Chase Briscoe. These guys at 5 through 10 are still kind of close, but not as close as they were coming into last week's race. But 5th, 6th, and 7th, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, and Chase Elliott. Elliott's a champ. Bell and Briscoe have both made the championship 4. They're with historically the 2 best teams in NASCAR, Hendrick and Joe Gibbs Racing. Briscoe, Bell, and Elliott are separated by just 6 points in 5th, 6th, and 7th at 663, 659, and 657. Now, I was talking about how dominant Toyota is in this season. 5 of the top 6 drivers right now in points are all Toyotas, and 4 of them are Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas. That kind of tells the story of this season, does it not, with how dominant Toyota and JGR have been. But Briscoe and Bell just got the 5th and 6th. They had rough starts to the season. Bell finally started to make up ground and then had a rough patch. But both of those drivers have come from way back to get into this position. So they're arguably the two hottest drivers in NASCAR, Briscoe and Bellar, which is why they have made up the ground and just got there. Guys like Elliott and Larson had been in that top six for a long time, but they have had cold stretches that mirrored Hendrick Motorsports cold stretches, which is why they have dropped. Hosefar goes all the way down to eighth after maybe his worst race of the year. He's not too far off that group. He's at 644, so 13 back of Elliott. And then Chris Buescher stays in ninth. He's been in ninth for a long time now, despite all the movement around him. He's at 637 points. Again, only 26 back of fifth, so there's still plenty of time for him to get there. And Kyle Larson is at 629, which is 34 points back of Chase Briscoe in fifth. So still only 34 points separating fifth through 10th. And it was 29 coming into last race. So that fifth through 10th race and that second through fourth race are going to be incredibly important when looking at the landscape of the chase this season. William Byron at 600. We now have 11 drivers over 600 points, with William Byron getting there with a top 10 finish. He's 29 points back of this group, so he needs to get hot and see how many of these guys he can catch. But this is the 25th race of the season coming up, and Hendrick Motorsports are 7th, 10th, and 11th in points. Obviously, Alex Bowman was hurt for a little bit, missed some races, having a rough season, so he's not anywhere near the cut line. That's not normal for Hendrick Motorsports, and I just feel like I'm waiting for them to hit a hot streak where they, quickly rise up the standings. Daniel Suarez down to 12th place at 597 points. Not expected to be there coming into the year. You got to think he's happy about it in his first year with a new team. Logano continues to chop down points, just 14 back of William Byron now with 586. Going to another track he's been successful at. This part of the schedule might be the best part of the schedule for Joey Logano. Bubba Wallace could have made up some ground on Joey Logano had he not made that speeding penalty. He led 31 laps, was up front, was getting good points. He finishes only 12th on the day. He's at 565, which is 21 points up on 15th Shane Van Gisbergen, who is the first driver in the playoffs that I think is in danger. He's at plus 47, which is a lot of points with 3 races to go. But if Van Gisbergen struggles on the 2 short tracks like he struggled at the last one, he is going to be at risk of getting caught. Austin Cindric, plus 29. They just need to find a way to have solid days, and I think he'll be okay. Ryan Preece moves up to 17, and how big is that penalty that he got earlier in the year? Minus 29. He made up some points to Cindric, going to a track where I think Ryan Preece is actually should be better at than Cindric, so still has opportunities to continue to cut down that gap. Ross Chastain with a fantastic day, and if that one team has found something on short tracks, this week and next week we'll have a chance to chop down points. This week at Richmond, next week at New Hampshire. Preece at 497, just 29 points back of the cut line. Or Chastain is 44 back, but just had a great week. That's what I was trying to get to. There's an extra 4 in Chastain and Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski's 1 back at Chastain at minus 45 to the cut line. And then Eric Jones was closer to the cut line last week, qualified in the top 5, looked like he was going to have a great points day, and gets wrecked by Tyler Reddick by accident. Day finished, and instead of being potentially right behind Austin Cindric or maybe even in front of him, he is now 50 points back with 3 races left, which will be a hard deficit to make up. That team has had a lot of speed all summer, and they look like they're figuring it out, but still not a great situation for Eric Jones and the 43 team. Now in the power rankings, where there isn't a whole bunch of movement, Denny Hamlin still 1. Gibbs, I move up to 2 with his win, his consistency, and being second in points. Blaney stays at 3. Reddick, for the first time all season, essentially is outside of the top 3. He's down in 4th. Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe, after good runs and being as hot as they are 5th and 6th. Hocevar falls to 7. Elliott in 8th. Buescher stays at 9th. Logano up to 10th. And Larson, for the first time all year, outside of the top 10 in points. William Byron in 12th. Bubba Wallace up to 13th. After showing lots of great speed, he moves up 2 spots. Suarez down to 14th. Shane Van Gisbergen, after an awful week, down to 15th. Cindric staying in 16th, where he's been a lot. That mid-teens area is exactly where Austin Cindric hangs out. Priest, after a solid week, up to 17th. Ross Chastain is back into the top 20 for the first time in a while, into 18th. And then Keselowski and Jones. This is just about how the point standings look right now. Is kind of how my power rankings look as well. That's all I have for everybody this week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you have beef with anything I've said today in the comments. Let me know who you think's going to win this week. And let me know how you think the point standings will shake out with so many close battles in the top 10. Find a couch this weekend and watch some sports. Baseball races are heating up. You got NASCAR. Preseason football is here. Maybe you're a Little League World Series fan. Plenty of good stuff on to keep you entertained. Football season's just right around the corner. Please, please, please take care of yourself. Take care of your family. It's a crazy world out there. Peace out.